Good evening, V.O.W. Voices of Women. It's your girl, Alicia Wanshell. I just want to take the time to let you guys know how much I truly appreciate you. Thank you so much for supporting my channel. We're currently at 347 subscribers, so thank you so much. I just ask that you please make sure that you're sharing my videos with your family and friends. Also, please make sure that you're liking my videos, and please make sure that you are leaving a comment. You don't know how much this really means to me. It means so much. And for those of you who do not know what my channel is about, it's basically it's a channel to support victims and survivors of abuse. Many of us have experienced some type of abuse in our life. For instance, I was molested growing up as a little girl, and that was it left me feeling very traumatized. I was first violated by someone that was supposed to be trusted. I was violated, and I was also violated by one of my mom's boyfriends, and I can remember being left home alone on a Saturday. Saturdays were my favorite days. I love to stay home and watch cartoons and eat cereal. And I remember being left home alone with this particular person, and they did the unthinkable. I can remember them walking from door to door to make sure that the doors were locked, and then I can remember them peeping out the window, and I just sat there and I watched, wondering what was going on. I was probably about maybe 5 or 6 or so, and then I remember them coming over to the chair where I was sitting, and they grabbed me by my hand, and I didn't know where we were going, and he placed me on the floor, and that's when he began to do inappropriate things. And it wasn't just that one time. It happened a number of times, and I was very shy, I was very timid. I was afraid to really tell anyone, especially when I witnessed him beating my mom. He beat her so bad. And I mean, that must have been the most traumatizing moments of my life, because I had never seen anything like that happen. And I mean, I was just a little girl. It was just me and my sister. And one day we had came home, and he was angry with my mom because another man had, told me that he was my dad. And not to mention that this guy here was not my father either. And so he got really upset about the fact that he stated he was my father, and he went to hitting my mom with full force. I mean, just hitting her like he was hitting another male. And I remember her balled up in the chair, and he was still hitting her, and I was screaming. Me and my sister standing there behind the chair, and we're looking so terrified. And I remember him turning around and him looking at me saying, "You better shut up before I beat you like I'm beating your mom." And I'll never, ever forget that moment. Never. I think that was the moment that my life changed. That was the moment that my life changed. And, I just, I didn't know what to do. I was really scared. Me and my sister, we tried to run out the house, and my mom, I remember her running behind us, and there was a pastor who lived right across the street, and we only got as far as his driveway. And I remember my mom's boyfriend running behind us, and he grabbed my mother, and he made us all go back in the house. And we went back in the house, and where he continued to beat my mom. He beat her so bad she was bleeding from the mouth. Her lips were busted, her gums were bleeding, and he finally got tired. And he decided to leave. And the moment he left is when my mom called the police. And when she called the police, they all came and they gathered around. And I remember them asking questions, and the phone had rang. And when the phone rang, my mom answered, and it was him. He was on the phone, and he was still very angry. The police was there. They were listening in, and somehow they managed to find out where he was. And I remember hearing one of the police officers saying, he's pretty strong. He just fought off 6 of our officers. So they really had a hard time, wrestling this man down to get him into custody. Just imagine this man with all this strength just hitting this little tiny female. My mom was very thin. She was very thin, and it was just very traumatizing, to see him hit my mom the way that he did. I mean, he beat her really bad. And so, that was something that really stuck with me for a very long time. And so when I started school, I was very, very, very shy, around other kids. I bit my nails a lot. I can remember sometimes, being so quiet that the teachers would forget that I was there. And I remember once I reached first grade, I believe that's when we started learning about, and it might have been second grade, but I want to say it was first grade. That's where we started learning about inappropriate touching and things like that. And I remember watching a video, and when I watched the video, I can remember feeling so embarrassed. I was so embarrassed. I was like, oh my gosh, that happened to me. And I remember not wanting to tell anybody because I felt not only embarrassed, but I felt ashamed. And for a long, long time, I kept that to myself. And but I just remember saying to myself that, I would never let that happen again. And, at that point, that's when I learned that it was wrong. And by the time I reached second grade, I remember there was a teacher, and I don't know where she is now. I don't even know if she's still living or what, but she was my second grade teacher, and I remember her calling me up to her desk, and she was like, honey, what's wrong? And, I was like, I didn't want to say anything. And she was like, honey, you can talk to me, let me know what's, is something wrong? Because I was so quiet, And that particular day, she could just tell that something was wrong. And I remember her telling me, she said, well, you can speak to me anytime. And the other teacher now, oh my goodness, that other teacher, she was so mean. She was just so mean. But Miss Panella, that was her name. I think it was Miss Perella. I'll never forget her. She could tell that something was wrong with me. But I never did open up to anyone about it, And I really wish I had of, because, he could have been put away behind bars so that he was not able to hurt anyone else or violate anyone else. That's the one thing that I do regret. I regret staying quiet about it, and I really think that it's something that none of us should do. It's something that we none of us should do. Stay quiet about these things that happens, because why? Because we're protecting them. In other words, we're protecting them, and we're giving them the opportunity to violate someone else's child, and it's not fair to them. So I think it's really important that, when we are if you're violated, if you've been violated, you need to speak up about it. You need to let somebody know, okay? Especially if you're a young girl, okay? Young girls, please make sure that you are very cautious around certain people. It doesn't matter if you know the person really well, because 9 times out of 10, you're violated by someone that you know, okay? So that is a known fact. It rarely happens by someone you don't know. Most of the time it's by someone that you know. And it can be a close friend, it could be a relative, an uncle, it could be your granddad, it can be, your cousin, so you want to make sure that you're very careful. Growing up, my great aunts always told us do not play around with adults, or especially grown men. Don't take money from them, don't sit on their laps, things of that nature. And we didn't do those things, but still there were people that were close to us, who knew my family really well, knew their situations, and they just took full advantage. My great aunt, she was in her 60s, and my mom, she was gone a lot. So this person who used to come by the house took full advantage. I was just a little girl, and I really didn't have any other supervision besides my great aunt, and he was very trusted. No one thought that he would do anything wrong, to me. So, no one thought the guards were down, pretty much. Guards were down, and he was able to do things to me in our backyard. And, whenever I spent the night over to his home, he would touch me at nighttime. And so, I never said anything about that either, not until I got older, and I can remember I used to see him when I became a teenager or whatever, old enough to speak up and everything. I would see him, and the one feeling I remember is I wish I had said something. I wish I had said something before it was too late. But I didn't. I was young, and I was very shy, and I was very timid. Another thing is that, as I mentioned, I promised that I would not ever allow that to happen to me again. And so by the time I reached age 12, my mom was now dating someone new. And I remember this person, she had been dating him since I was maybe 9 or 10. And when I turned 12 years old, I can remember being downstairs. I was downstairs sleeping on my stomach, and I felt something tugging at my pants. And so I slowly got up, and I was looking like, well, what's going on? And I can remember looking over, and I seen this body lying next to me, and they had their head turned the opposite way, so I couldn't see their face. And it was dark, guys. It was really dark, but it was like a reflection, like some light shining downstairs, so I can kind of see some of him. And so I leaned in closer just to see who it was. And when I realized that it was my mom's current boyfriend, I jumped up so fast, guys. I jumped up so fast. I ran upstairs where my mom was, and I told her what had just taken place. And my mom stood there like in shock, and it's like she couldn't say anything, and I remember me standing there just explaining myself, or explaining what had just happened, and he just walks in as if nothing had ever taken place. And he looked at us like, what y'all standing there looking like that for? And I remember my mom telling him, just repeating the story that I had told her. And he looked at her and was like, I was downstairs getting water. And so I'm standing there looking in disbelief, like, I know he didn't just say that. And so my mom, then she looked at me and she just went in like, you just trying to come in between our relationship. And that was one of the most devastating moments of my life, because I felt so shattered. I felt so broken. The one time that I defended myself and thought that my mom would be there to defend me, she just totally turned on me, and she took his words over mine. And that's something that really stuck with me for a very long time. I can remember thinking like, I'll never allow my kids to go through that. I would never treat my kids like that. And I remember I ran downstairs. I was just so upset, and I remember crying. I remember crying so hard, and I mean, I was deeply hurt, guys. I was so hurt, and I didn't know what to do. But I knew I didn't want to be there. I knew I didn't want to be there anymore. And I called an older cousin of ours, and she picked up the phone, and she could tell that there was something wrong. And she would say, "What's wrong, honey? What's going on?" And I had explained to her what had just happened, and she, told me to meet her up there at the hotel, which was up the street from where I lived at the time. And so I walked up there that night, and she took me to her place, and I stayed over there. And she said, "We'll deal with this in the morning." So that next morning when she woke up, she called my mom, and she was like, "Such and such, what's going on? Your daughter is over here with me." And she said that this happened, and my mom just completely flipped out, and apparently she was not talking in her right state of mind. She was still defending her boyfriend, and saying things inappropriately about me. Oh, she just jealous of us, and she don't want us to be together. And man, when I tell you, that made my cousin so upset. She went off, and before I knew it, she hung up the phone, and she called the DCF, and she called them and got them involved, and they advised us to meet them over there at my mom's place. And so we went over there, and I remember just like it was yesterday, guys, standing in that living room, and it was two of them. They were asking questions. They asked me what happened, and I had given them my story. And then they turned to my mom, and they asked her, what happened, and she was talking. And so then they turned towards him because he was there at the time. They asked him what happened, and he told them that, "Oh, well, I thought that she was her mom downstairs. I was drunk, and that was a lie, because my mom was upstairs the entire time. He had came from downstairs to where I was." And so to make a long story short, they looked at my mom, and they told her, they said, "Well, he can no longer be here. If he's caught in your home, we will remove your kids and put them in state custody." My mom, man, she cried. She cried so hard, and you would think that she would be crying for the simple fact that he admitted that he tried to pull my pants down. No, she didn't. She wasn't crying about that. She was crying because of the fact that he had to leave and he could no longer be there. And so, once again, that was a very hurtful moment for me, because, I just felt like she didn't care at all. He was her world. She worshiped him, and, don't get me wrong, she was my mom, and I love her. I would fight for her. And in fact, I can remember a moment of when he left. She left with him, and they were staying with a friend nearby, and she would come in and out, from time to time. And every time she would come over to every time she would come home, she would say, if they take you guys from me and put you in state custody, I'm not going to have any way to live. They're going to cut off my money, and I'm not going to have any place to stay. I'm not going to have any way to eat, things like that. And she was my mother, so of course I felt sorry for her, and so she would say that, like time and time again. And it just stuck in my head, like, this is my mom. So shortly after that, gradually she started bringing him over, and she would remind me, "Well, you know what would happen if they knew he was here? Don't tell them that he was here." And so, I covered for my mom. I didn't say anything, because again, she was my mom. So I just dealt with you know, him coming there, even though I didn't feel comfortable. But then it had gotten to the point to where he had finally completely moved back in. And, you know, from time to time, someone would come over to the house and they would ask questions. And I would tell them, you know, no, he hasn't been over to the house and so forth, because I didn't want to have anything happen to my mom. I didn't want her to get in trouble. And so after he was moved back in, he never tried to molest me or anything like that again. But what he did do was, like, he would pick fights. I would be on a phone, and I remember one particular time he had snatched the cord out of the wall. And I think that was the moment that all of the anger that I had built up inside came out. And I remember taking that cord. He had ran upstairs, and I believe he dropped the cord on the step. And I remember picking up that cord, and I ran upstairs. And by the time I got upstairs, he was sitting on the bed, on my mom's bed. And my mom she was laid out across the bed, half, you know, way naked, and she was intoxicated. And so she was kind of like passed out. And I remember running in that room full speed, and I dived on him. And he had a little small afro, and I remember grabbing some of his hair, and I was just hitting him so hard, and I had my knees pinned in his stomach. And I was much smaller then. I was much smaller, and I mean, I was just full of rage, guys. I was full of rage. Had so much anger coming out, just so much anger. And so we're on the bed, we're fighting, and I'm still on top of him with my knees pinned in his stomach. I had one hand in his hair, just hitting him. And I remember he was screaming, "Get off me, get off me." And that woke my mom up, all this, you know, the tussling back and forth and everything. And my mom jumped up. She was disoriented. She didn't have a clue of what was going on. You know, her pants were down to her ankle. I mean, like, she was just that intoxicated, guys. She was very intoxicated. And I remember her, like, when she pulled herself together, she tried to pull me off of him. And as she was pulling me, he was coming up with me because, you know, I had such a good grip of him. I was just so angry, guys. So angry. I mean, if you had known all of the things that I have been dealing with, like, you know, he was my mom's boyfriend, but he was not supportive at all. And I can remember, you know, him just being there, you know. He was just there. He didn't care. He didn't help her support us or anything, you know. And so that day when I fought him, I was just so angry. So, you know, when my mom finally pulled me off of him, you know, she was just in shock because she never seen me behave like that before. You know, I was quiet and I was usually timid, but from that point on, I think that brought a different me out. It brought a different person out. And you know, we would fight here and there. I mean, it was just a regular thing after that point. You know, he would think that he can say something, anything to me, and, you know, next thing I knew, we would be fighting. And I just became this angry young girl. I was very angry. I had a lot of bitterness inside. I was just not happy. And I can remember, you know, my mom he would cause a lot of drama. Like, you know, he would say that I did things that I didn't do, and my mom would believe him. And I mean, you know, it was just, you know, it happened so much to the point to where I just developed an I don't care attitude. And so, you know, my mindset was, okay, well, I'm gonna get in trouble anyway, so I might as well, you know, and I might as well do this and do that. And, you know, so I just didn't care anymore. I remember sometimes I would throw dishes and break dishes because I was just so angry. Like, and then it had gotten to the point to where I remember he would be so disrespectful towards my mom in front of her friends, in front of us. I mean, he would just say, foul, very foul things to her, and I didn't like it. I didn't like it at all. It used to, oh gosh, it used to burn me up, guys. And I can remember one time she had a friend over and he slapped her in front of her friend, and I jumped on him. I jumped on him. I was so angry. And I remember my mom getting upset with me. And I can't tell you again, I felt so broken, so shattered. There was a time when we left and walked to the store, and then when we came back, we caught him on the chair with her friend, in her house. And again, it was like a slap in the face. So there was times where my mom wouldn't defend herself, and I stepped in to defend her. I mean, I felt like I had to, because she just wouldn't defend herself. So eventually, I got older. I was able to move out. I mean, once I turned 18, that is, and I moved out, got my own place. It was just horrible. I mean, I don't know what it was, but for whatever reason, my mom, she was just angry at me for a lot, for some reason. She would call me names. She would call me everything but a child of God. And I remember like just thinking, man, I just can't take this anymore. So I decided to move like 45 minutes away from home. And when I moved away, it seemed like she missed me, but I just didn't. I just got tired of all the negativity. She would say things to me like, I found you in the dumpster, or I dropped you on your head, things like that. So, I just wanted to be far away.